Okay, so welcome everybody here in Atacama and welcome everybody on the stream. It's good to see you all here and it's good to see the camera and hoping that there is somebody behind it. So today you will have two talks, but we have a great deal for you. You'll have two talks, but four speakers. Because the first one from my colleagues from Muse will be in Trio because they will be speaking about the product Trio and the way how they work. And in the second, we will learn about dead fish going with the flow. So there is a lot to look forward to. And yeah, this is all from me. I don't need to speak more. And please come on stage.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining in today. So, as Jan mentioned, we are going to be talking about working in a product trio and everything that we have experienced working as a product trio together over the last 3 years. If we head over to the next slide. So, my name is Alde. I'm a product manager from Muse, and I'm joined with my colleagues Susanna, who leads over on the design side, and Jakub, who is our lead engineer. And essentially, what we'd like to cover with you today is exactly what a product trio is in terms of how we work with it at Muse. And then we'll look at how to actually work in a trio in terms of what we've learned, the goods, the bads, and what you're continuously learning as well. And then we'll go through our general roles and responsibilities in terms of product design and engineering at Muse. And then we'll also talk about some of our failures that we've done together as a team within our cross-functional teams as well as the successes, because it's important for us to really explain how we've managed to develop and learn over the last couple of years working together as a team. Then we'll walk through some of the activities and rituals that we go through together in a sort of by sprint and by quarter as well. And then a couple of tips that we have with regards to actually collaborating well and working well as a trio. So, starting off with what is a product trio and why do you need it? So, we're looking at what is the value of having 3 points of view when making a product decision in a product organization.
So in our case, product trio is a product manager, product designer, and the product and the tech lead. But generally the trio can be 2 people, 3 people, 4 people. Our case is the 3 of us. Each of us with a different point of view and a different experience. So you would hire these 3 guys, put them in a team, and make them lead the team and do all the decisions. So what could go wrong? What could go wrong, for example, can be that the product manager would just create the brief, give it to product designer, then product designer would take it, design exactly what was given by the product manager, then he would just push it all to the tech lead. So what's wrong with this? I think you all already know. It's that these 3 people working next to each other, but not together, they are creating silos. So this way of collaborating is not actually what we are aiming for within the product trio. This is more like a waterfall, and it can create its own different set of problems. But what we are actually aiming to do is really working together. The baseline of working is trio is actually having a group of equals who are jointly responsible for delivering a shared outcome, for solving a problem, and that this outcome would actually help your company to achieve your strategic goals. So the trio is autonomous cross-functional group of roles that is really working together at every step of the process. We are responsible for fulfilling the strategy, and we make decisions about continuous discovery and delivery.
So, when we talk about collaborating at every step of the way, we look at common practices that we have within product organizations, right? So the most common one that we all look at is the double diamond. So, like Zuzka mentioned to you earlier, if you work in a linear manner and you don't communicate, you actually miss out on a lot of the processes whilst you're collaborating. So what we do together is that we always look at, when we're looking at initiatives, we look everything from the capacity of the team. We look at the data available to us, whether it's the market data, the understanding of how our users work with the system. We speak to internal stakeholders together. So throughout the entire discovery process, from actually understanding what a problem is, identifying multiple possible solutions. We then work together to prioritize what we feel are the main problems. But we also take the time to take what we've learned and the understandings with our full team. So throughout every step of the way, whilst we do work in a trio, we're always collaborating with data, for example, to really understand the insights, because we're constantly asking questions throughout the entire journey. And then together, we work towards defining what the main problems and the top opportunities for us to actually solve. And within these opportunities, we again gather with the team, we present to them what the data, the outcomes, and the problems we feel are. And then we have a conversation to actually define the sense of the problem. Because whilst we're able to bring different forms of value and understanding in terms of the product's viability, its feasibility, and whether it's business viable, we also make sure that we discuss it with our entire team as well, to make sure that throughout the process, they have an understanding which problems we are trying to solve, so that we can work towards a solution as a full cross-functional team. And then as we work towards things like delivery, oftentimes we've sometimes made the mistake that once delivery is done, then some of us are looking at data, and then the rest of the team is working maybe on another initiative. What we found is that if you collaborate from all the way through to the moment something's been released, and you start to look at the learnings and the data together, because we have a different point of view and a different perspective, we're able to actually speak about what we see as the outcomes. And very often, it's not always an agreement, right? Because we have different points of view. So we're able to collaborate and actually come to a much better conclusion much faster, because we're together in the room and not bringing each other results, but looking at the information together. And then we're also able to explore different ideas. So whilst we've been looking at actually finding what the right problem is, we then are looking at how do we solve this problem in an iterative way that can scale continuously as we work on multiple initiatives together. So this really helps us to really drive towards creating continuous value throughout every step of the way. And then one of the things that we started to embrace more, especially with regards to the full discovery process and continuous discovery, is making sure that we build with our customers. So what we like to call it is sort of customer-led development, because in the end, our customers are the specialists within their fields. Our jobs as engineering and product organizations is to solve problems that deliver value. So we make sure that we work closely with our customers to really identify the issues that they have. And the great part about that is when you really pull your customers through the entire process, rather than asking them for solutions or just collaborating with them once in a while, you're actually able to build that trust in the customers to really explain to them what your process is, and they can really see how you evolve towards an idea that delivers value. Rather than speaking to them initially and coming up with an issue, and they giving you a feature request and coming back and saying, here's what we've done, and they ask you, well, this isn't what you asked for. It helps them to understand what is solving the problem, and it builds a lot of trust for them. And when you look at the business sense, it's really good for them building reference customers from the customer base that you have. So if you're working in a startup or a scale up, having those reference customers is incredibly important for helping you grow the product as a whole. So it actually helps to expand. And it means as you do different discoveries and development, you now have a group and a culture with your customers that they're willing to share feedback with you and be open, because they feel and can see the value of their feedback with you every step of the way. So for this, for us, it's really important. This is really how we learned how to build tight feedback loops, again, including each other throughout the journey. So the next part are, what are the benefits of working in that trio and having those 3 points of view? So we talk often about the 4 main value points within product. And if you've read any sort of product or engineering organization book, we talk about business viability, value, and usability. So when you're looking at value, it's really determining what value you can bring to those customers within every step. And this is very much where product brings their insights into the market and to the industry and understanding the data of what's going on. And then you look at the usability, right? So this is very much strongly orientated around design. So is what we desire to build actually going to be simple and usable enough for our customers that we don't have to spend excessive amount of time managing support structures or guides and having to handhold and explain things. And then we look at feasibility. So based on what we've determined actually has value and what is actually usable and what we've designed, we need to look at the technical stack that we have and what is possible to actually implement within that. And throughout that process, you're really starting to cut some things out, add some things in that actually deliver value. And sometimes you find new and exciting things that you haven't thought about because you're looking at it from this angle. And that together within the sort of trio that we work in, as Susanna mentioned, you can work in different types of trios. That helps us determine what the business viability is as we continue to build functionality.
So each of us obviously represents like one part of this chart, right? It is how do we incorporate our product into some viable business, right? So that would be viability on the product management side. It would be like how much our customers desire or need the feature, right? So that would be on the desirability side of the product designer. And it would be, can we actually make it, right? Like, can we actually deliver this? Can we maintain it? Can we support that feature long-term so our customers can use it long-term, can rely on that feature? And that's obviously on the feasibility side of the tech lead. And the question is, like, how do you get a great product from this, right? Like, how do you mix those things together to get something good and beautiful? And obviously, you take all of it, right? Like, you need all of those three things to make something great and good and lovely for people to use and enjoy. This chart is essentially a representation of your typical fail fast, right? If you are working on a thing, feature, fix, whatever you are currently doing, you can generate 80 ideas a day, right? That's not a problem. Like, that's fine. You can iterate very quickly. You can design maybe 2 or 3 a day, right, out of those ideas, and that's also good. You can implement maybe 1 a week, right, maybe 2 a week, and you are kind of getting into this this slowdown of iteration that you can do. And you can test and verify maybe 1 a month, right? Like if you are talking to a lot of customers or something like that. And obviously, like, who wants to maintain 5 different solutions for a single problem, right? Long term, nobody. So more of this, fail as soon as possible. Verify your stuff as soon as possible because it cuts down on the amount of stuff that you will need to do long term exponentially.
So on the side of product manager, so what is a product manager responsible for? So there's obviously lots of definitions, and we're not going to go into too much detail on it. But within our trio, what I mainly focus on as a PM is that feasibility, the viability, and the value, and making sure that we constantly communicate what we're working on and the ideas we have can scale within the organization. Essentially, as a PM, a lot of what you're doing is communicating with stakeholders. So we often say that through, again, every step of the journey, whether it's your internal stakeholders so they understand what you're working on, or your external stakeholders so they know what's coming up and they know and understand the decisions you made and the outcome of those decisions, thinking about those reference customers as well. Basically, preach, preach, preach. Your responsibility should be able to make sure that what your team is working on is well communicated so that you can be accountable for the outcomes that happen together with your trio. If you look at sort of a summary of what you need to do as product manager, Jakub said it really well earlier. There are hundreds or sometimes thousands of ideas a day. You need to be open-minded to these ideas, but you also need to make sure that you maintain your focus. I think most companies have OKRs and objectives that go from all the way from the company level down to the sort of organizational level within each team. Make sure that what you're building towards is always driving towards this. We also often talk about things like those North Star metrics. So your responsibility should be making sure that every decision that you make is building towards those North Stars. Whatever your proxy metrics are, you should make sure that you're building towards those and always communicate why you've made these ideas. Because transparency saves you a lot of time down the line when either your leadership team is asking you questions or the entire organization. Because you'll find that a lot of the time, if you release something and you have not done a lot of communication, you'll spend most of your time basically becoming a support agent in product for the internal stakeholders instead of delivering more value for your users and speaking to them. Lastly, just make sure when you go to your teams that you share problems, not the solutions. It's very easy when someone comes up with an idea to get really fixated on this will be such a great way to solve it. What's incredibly difficult is to be able to frame a solution, bring that towards your team, and this is essentially what engineering teams should be doing, right? Is actually coming up with solutions to those problems, and that's what they specialize on. So that's probably the most difficult part, but also the most valuable for PM.
So my responsibility as a product designer is actually assuring usefulness, usability, and desirability of the solution. So that's my role in one sentence, but what does it mean? So as Alder said about dealing with a problem, not the solution, I really have to ask, is what we are building useful? Does it solve the problem? Will it really help the people we are doing it for at the end, or no? Sometimes it's even really reframing the problem or validating it. Sometimes you all know we fall in love with the solution, but we really need to be problem oriented. So once we are at the end, we can actually look back and evaluate: did we solve the problem? Yes or no? Did we improve the situation? The second thing is, of course, usability. Can our users actually use the solution that we prepared for them? Are they able to use it effectively? And then, of course, desirability. Do they like interacting with the system, or is it maybe painful for them because the system is not desirable, it doesn't look good? So what are they actually feeling when they are interacting with the system? So the great user experience actually lies at the intersection of all three of these, and I am there to make sure that we are actually achieving towards all of them.
And as a tech lead, like one major thing to ask is, we have a great idea, right? Like my colleagues will come up with something super nice and super great, but can we deliver it? Can we deliver it on time, right? Like, is this something that we can actually do? Because if we can't, it's a wasted idea. It's pointless. Yeah. You should ask yourself at least few of these questions every single day, and all of them from time to time, right? Like, what are you doing right now? How this impact what you will do next? How it will impact whatever you are planning in 3 months, 6 months, in a year, if that's something you are even planning. Keep an eye on what will happen with things that you are currently doing, because sooner or later you will want to revisit it. You will want to have a look into changing it or improving it, and it would be great if that thing is in good shape and you can make your changes efficiently and again on time. Story time. Great. So we shared our ideal scenario. We shared the way we would, we work and we would love to continue working. But obviously, the implementation of whatever we talked about has some, good parts and some not so good parts. So let's start with the failure. So once upon the time, we had this all hands meeting, right? And our sales engineers came to us and said, look, our customers, right, are asking us for this great new feature, like this thing that you can do with the hotel reservation in a hotel that means that the reservation is not quite confirmed yet. You don't know if you are coming or not, but they still want it in a system. And we said, that's great, right? That makes logical sense. The system is ready for it. On the paper, it looks great. Or does it? So we made the thing. Like we spend a lot of time doing it. It's a system change, right? Like you are not putting a button somewhere. It's something that cuts right deep into the core of the system, and it took quite a bit of time to actually achieve. And you can see the usage of it now. It's the thick line on the bottom. So all the rest of the things that can happen with the reservation has like thousands, and like maybe hundreds use cases. This thing has 2 on a good day, which is not great. We wasted a bunch of time. It was pointless. Customers didn't want this at all. They wanted something completely different. We spent 4 months, I think it's 4 months. We spent 4 months doing it. And what's the outcome? Outcome is that we learned that people don't want this. They want something else. So that wasn't great. Can you go back? Like I have one point. The reason why we felt this hard on this is that we didn't do our due diligence, right? We said, it's great, it makes sense, let's do it. Instead of saying, great, we will talk to those people ourselves, we will talk to people that generated that request, and we will dig deeper. We will get out of them why they want this and what they want to achieve. So, and we didn't do that, and that's why we wasted a bunch of time. On the other hand, this is our latest and greatest. Like, we are very proud of this. We built a new tool essentially to manage promises of reservations. We don't need to bore you with the details about this, but what this highlighted, like to us, and I guess by proxy to everybody involved in that project, was that we worked on this as a trio. We even discovered it as a trio, right? Like we were on the call with the customer, like 3 of us, and customer said something that sounded weird, and we kept digging on that call until we realized, oh yeah, actually they want something completely different, and we don't have it. And we need to build it if we want to keep that customer. So that was a very nice way of doing it, and it actually yielded quite a bit of nice outcome. The key for this specifically, was a relatively quick turnaround. Like we spent maybe 2 or 3 weeks on each slice of this particular feature, and each slice was delivering a value, but was just covering like part of the big picture. So our first slice, as I recall, was open API, right? We just opened an API to our integration partners to do whatever they needed to do with those reservations. But there was no UI for it. Like nobody could actually see it in the system. But integration partners could start using it, and that started to deliver value. And then we rolled in with the other slice, like the second slice, and that added some minimal UI, right? So we were able to show this feature to people using the application. And then we just kept rolling like self-supported minimal slices that on their own didn't do much, but worked together in the long-term plan that we outlined at the beginning of the implementation.
So the next part we'll talk to is our activities and rituals. So this is obviously not every single thing a product chair or product team does throughout every sprint or every sort of quarter. But some of the main things that we found help us to keep on track and continuously deliver value.
So the first one is discovery. We already talked about this quite a lot during this presentation, but again, discovery, if it's qualitative or quantitative, all of us are participating on that. Whether it's on-site visits, it's call with customers, it's usability testing. 3 of us, we are not attending all of us every single call, but on a regular basis, tech lead, product manager, and me are talking with clients. We are all even including more people from the team. If they know they will be working on a certain feature, we would invite them to the call so they can actually see what is customer dealing with. the important thing is to realize that the first-hand experience of seeing your customer really struggling, not being able to checking their guests, and being in that awkward position when the guests are piling up on the reception and they cannot do it, that's like no one will replicate that. I can go to developer and I can tell them like, this doesn't work good, this is really bad, but once everyone will just have that first-hand experience without the middleman, it will have just the motivation to do something about it. It's much higher. So that's like qualitative discovery, but also the three of us look at the data together and we share them together at all times. So we keep the big picture. And that's also the thing Jakub was speaking about when he's asking himself what is the big picture about maybe the feature we are developing. He knows because he's there and he knows what our customers are dealing with. So he can really take a step back and see the full potential of a thing that we are working on. Another thing we are doing is that we explore opportunities together. Yeah. Okay. We explore opportunities together. This is opportunity solution 3, which if you will Google it at Product Talk, you will see the full article about. It's a nice way basically how to brainstorm possible opportunities, how you can solve a problem. It's not centered around the solution, but around an actual problem. You would start with a problem and then you can have a look. What are all the ways you can solve a particular situation for your user? And then within a trio or within the whole team, you can have a look, okay, these maybe are not feasible. We can test these with clients. We can do usability testing about these ones. So at the end, you are really looking back at the problem and you are not fixated on one solution that you're delivering.
Another thing that we do together often is value mapping. So value mapping is something you can do literally every sprint all the way through to your larger initiatives when you're looking at your quarterly planning. So whether it's like comparing different ideas that you've now sliced and you have your sort of top list of ideas and you're looking at which sort of initiative you want to go into more depth on. So this is before you start even having prototypes or the designs. And again, you're not solutioning here, you're looking at the most valuable opportunities and you're looking at whether or not those opportunities are actually time bound within what you have, or if you're able to, if you're looking at in terms of your budget, are you able to invest and achieve something successful for that initiative? One of the other things that we also look at that we find very helpful earlier on is looking at what they call opportunity assessments. It's a really small canvas and we have got a tablet over here, but it's we can share it later. But it's a small canvas that it really makes you think and you look at everything from the possible metrics that you look at, the possible outcomes, the main top problems and opportunities a solution has, what it would look like when you perhaps would slice it, who are you solving the problems for, so who are the actual personas for solving those problems. So all of that really helps you bring back the context when you're looking at the sort of the value mapping side. When you're looking at sort of larger initiatives, again, looking at sort of continuous like quarterly planning, what we've recently found very helpful is something called the Kano model. So the Kano model, basically, if you see at the bottom corner, you see all the sort of basic operations, right? So these are typical functionalities that are within the system. So for example, if you look at a phone, can I make calls and send texts? Well, if your functionality is there, then you should probably just do it because it's not going to make much difference at all in the market. And then you look at sort of the performance items. So these are items where different competitors within your segment are actually actively looking at. They haven't really reached fruition in terms of as much as they can achieve in functionality. Everybody might be doing it a slightly different way, but they've become an expectation within the market for you to have. Of course, there are the sort of neutral things where it's going to take you time. It's not going to deliver that much value. People aren't going to get excited about it. And in terms of your user's value, it's generally very low. And then there's the real sweet spot for the ideas you're working towards. And this again comes towards that solution tree. So if you have those series of ideas that you have, it's then much easier to be able to build this model and look at what would truly delight the customers, right? So if you already have a phone and you can make calls and you can use the internet, what is the next thing that if you build this, puts you completely on the map for other users? What makes you stand out and makes people actually want to speak to you? Of course, with all functionality, as you go along with time, it starts to move down, and what was once a delighter becomes a basic operation. And that's why sort of that continuous process is really important to understand where you are and where you want to go. The next part is slicing. So this is where between product and engineering, we have sometimes agreements and sometimes arguments. Where we're looking at, in terms of what we can achieve from a business-wise and what delivers value, what is actually technically feasible for us to do for a specific initiative? Is it, as I mentioned earlier on, is it actually time-bound, right? So what can we do in those small releasable increments that do deliver value? Jakub mentioned a great example earlier when he was talking about the second feature we worked on, right? Within those first 3 weeks, we're already doing stuff that delivered value for our users. Whereas the first time, that sort of big failure we had, we spent 4 months building this entire thing, and then we put it in front of people, and they were like, cool, we're not going to use it. Whereas with those small increments, it really helps you, and it's incredibly hard because you got to, once everything looks great, especially when you look at like the final design, the final concept, you've got to figure out which ones have the best outcomes, which ones can you measure each step of the way that help you, in the case of those opportunity trees, move towards the next possible iteration. Sometimes you're going to learn from it and move a different direction. So there's a good example they call like persevere, pivot, or perish. So will you persevere with that idea based on this iteration? Will you know that based on these outcomes, this is really great, let's keep going for it? Will you pivot a bit and decide, so we're kind of going in the right direction, but we need to start rethinking slightly how we're doing this? Or will you look at, will you have enough data and information from that iteration to say, we need to stop now. If we carry on, we are not delivering something worth value, and we need to quickly, again, like Jakub said, fail fast and move on to something different. And then there is planning. So with planning, we always look at trying to be as open as possible within our own teams, as well as the whole organization. We're trying not to be fixed about planning. We're very flexible about what we do. Again, we always think about, this is sort of more, not a full roadmap for the company, but rather for our team to make sure when we're going through the different processes, we're not getting lost in what we said we're accountable to do. If we get to a point where we're building functionality that became much bigger, we know that, okay, we're at this stage, we're going this direction, we will continue with this because we know it delivers value, versus saying, okay, it's now been 3 months and we said we're going to do all this stuff and we told the leadership team that this is what we're going to achieve, and suddenly we haven't. With this format, we're able to continuously say, like, this is what we're working on. This is what we're going to remove from like the sprint or from even the entire quarter, simply because we've identified that this is not feasible. We have the data to show it. Again, with that continuous learning, you're able to be agile enough to handle situations as well as any bugs or any blockers or any issues that you encounter during the way. The last thing that we've also fairly recent, actually probably at the end of last year, introduced is something that we do just on a weekly basis within our entire team. Every Friday we have a retrospective rather than having it at the end of every sprint, because we have 2-week sprints and an incredible amount happens in 2 weeks. So at the last Friday, we have what we call a sailboat retrospective. There's a really good templates online that you can actually use for this. But we look at what actually helped us move forward in the week. So the whole team goes onto essentially a Miro board and they put what helped them move forward in the week. We talk about the good parts of the week, and then we look at what held us back. So all the anchors. So what happened during the week that didn't help me to achieve what I wanted to. And from there, we start looking at solutions for that. So this held me back. In the future, what can we do as a team to make sure we support each other and we don't have these issues? And then at the same time, with the coming week, we also look at future risks. So what are we worried about for the initiatives that we're working on now that we think may not be achieved or have some issues for the future if the client is experiencing them, or simply we don't think we can achieve them. That helps us make decisions for the coming week already if we need to change direction. And then we like to end it again with our entire team looking at what made us feel good for the week. It's a really nice way to just sort of close off the week, especially when everyone's been busy. It's anything from the things that are helping you forward in your team when you feel accomplished, and the things, whether it's cronuts or any cake someone brought to the office, just to bring some sort of positivity within the team. Again, ending the week on a high note.
So to close this off, we have a few collaboration tips. We got the question, how long did it take us to align? This is the question from one of our colleagues when we did this presentation internally. So how long did it actually take us to, start communicating effectively and working together as a trio? Because I think right now we are together for 2 years. So the answer was quite simple, until the first failure. So it was really that moment when we really were forced to realize what are all those things we are maybe not doing that we should really improve with, because even if you are doing everything wrong, but everything at the end is going good, you're maybe not so challenged to be better, to communicate better, to look at different ways how to improve. But in the example Jakub described, we really realized what we should have done differently, and we really took those action steps to be better and change ourselves and to communicate effectively, so we prevent any similar failures in the future. Another question is, what helps us to move forward? It's that shared vision about what we want to achieve and what do we want our product to be in the future. This is something that one thing that really helps us with this is that discovery. When we are doing discovery together, and then we have the discussions and the briefs about the problems our users were actually facing, it really gives us a clear direction. Okay, this is where we are aiming, this is our vision, how we want to build our product, and this really helps us to make even those hard decisions when sometimes we have to ask ourselves, okay, will we go the easy way or the hard way? What is the priority right now? We can always reflect back to what we are actually aiming towards, and that helps us going forward.
And then lastly, we communicate every day. So at some point we're having almost meetings every day, but we sort of got to the point where we're constantly sharing information with each other. We can't all be everywhere at the same time and constantly on calls. It's just not practical. Whether it's Susanna sharing what other teams are working on from the design reviews, to Jakub sharing what the other teams are working on through pull requests, through engineering, through me sharing what's been worked on in terms of the business and the product. We make sure that we cross-pollinate all our conversations constantly every day. It means we don't have to spend lots of times in meetings. It's an easy Loom video or quick message in Slack just to make sure we're updated on all the information in real time. We agree to disagree. One of the good parts about working in a chair is that it's much easier to come to an agreement with two people and be okay with it. When you add a third person into it who has a slightly different opinion, you really force yourselves to think much harder and focus on what really matters. You throw away the things that just, make you happy, and you settle on an agreement of what truly brings value. And we solve conflicts democratically based on what we call data, i.e. we get out the office, have an ice cream, and make a final decision of exactly what we're going to do. So, quick Q&A now that we're towards the end, which is, how do you work in your trios if you do? Or any questions if you have any.
Thank you. But you can still ask the question. You can still ask questions, and also people at the stream, you can ask questions in Slido. But I like that you actually asked questions. You kind of prevented this if there weren't any questions. But yeah, you kind of took away my question. If you ever go for a beer together, kind of that you. I mean, you work together for 2 years. Do you actually need to be friends to work this closely, or you just go to your separate lives and never see each other?
Yes.
I would say over the last few years, like we've, in quotes, spent a lot of time together. But between things like COVID, there was obviously points where I think we did not see each other for literally at least a year and a half.
But I know you two meet in metaverse, right?
So at some point, we decided to like start figuring out different ways to speak because it was COVID and we were working from home. So we ended up both discovering, or rather, Jakub convinced me that the metaverse was super cool. And I decided, okay, let me try this. And we started having weekly meetings in the metaverse.
But Zuzka doesn't think it's cool yet.
Oh.
Okay, there you go. There is the answer. So if there is no, is there? Oh, there is.
In this first example that you showed us about reservation state, what's actually customer asks for? Like your example was really natural, and I would expect the same, but you mentioned that it's not the case.
So what they wanted effectively was to create potential reservations that would or would not convert into actual reservations in the future, right? So if you imagine that as a scenario, if you have a hotel in the some like a seaboard city, right, and you have like a big ship full of passenger ship coming into the harbor, they know that they will sail to that city 6 months from now, right? And they will call to your that travel agency that owns that ship will call to your hotel and will say, in 6 months, I want 800 beds in your property. And you will say, okay, I will set aside those beds 6 months from now. And that's what those customers wanted us to do, right? What we made instead was creating an actual reservations 6 months in the future. And that's not what they wanted, right? Like that ship can change a lane and they will never come. Or that ship can not carry 800 passengers, it can carry 400, right? So they needed this flexibility of saying, yo, in 6 months, some people will come eventually in this type of configuration, right? But they didn't need that much of a detail. So we didn't need to create reservations that much in the future. We just needed to create a space for those reservations to eventually go into.
Okay, I have only 3 questions, but I want to make it a press conference. First one, how do you work with MVPs? I pretend that if you are talking to each other every day, you will build a great product step by step. And the second approach is that, okay, we will kick off MVP, we will try it, and if it won't work, we will delete it. If it will work, we will delete it and build it again. So what is your approach?
I will do quick. We will just talk about, are we still okay on saying that MVPs are garbage?
Yes.
Great, great. MVP is not, to us at least, it's nonsensical concept. You literally never do that, right? Like when you say you deployed MVP, right? What you are saying is that either you made an experiment, right? You don't know if that thing is minimal, viable, or a product. Or you say, actually, I deployed MVP because I made my due diligence, right? I talked to a bunch of people. I know it's viable. I know this is the lowest, smallest configuration I can deploy, and I know that people will actually want it. Then that's not MVP. That's just P. Like you just made a product. So like that's, you know, like that concept of the MVP, to us at least, is completely nonsensical. Like it's there to, you know, sell upper management or something. Like like we don't see any use in that. What we do try to do instead would be something that we describe with those minimum slices, right? Like we are saying, look, we have a big thing, and we can test some parts of that big thing, right? And we call that a slice, and we are look, those slices should be self-supported. If we want to test something on that slice, right, it needs to be at least somewhat what that slice is supposed to do. So in that example that we showed, we made an API connection, right, for that success scenario. So we made just an APIs. We didn't make any UI. We didn't make nothing else, but a way for people to take a thing and put it and get it back, right? And that was a good enough slice to show our integration partners and customers that we are working on something, right? And there could be a back and forth on that something, right? Like we could ask them, do you like the data that you can actually persist in a system, right? But that's not an MVP. Like that's not viable on its own, right? Like if people just can put something into the database and then get it out, but not do anything with it, no, that's not an MVP. So long story short, we don't like them.
Just one thing or two things to add. With an MVP, I'd say that sometimes there is a trap of, okay, we will do MVP, and then what? Then we will, I don't know, test it, measure it, and plan what is going to happen next. But if we are, going in it with the perception of, okay, these are the slices that we will be doing gradually and measure them gradually and observe them gradually, we kind of know what we are doing. We are measuring constantly, and if something goes wrong in the meanwhile, of course we adjust and we change. But MVPs tend to be bigger than the slices Jakub described, and sometimes it happens that really people are, okay, so we have MVP, and now what are the next steps? And I think that nothing is as long-lasting as like single-use solution. Like nothing lasts as long as the solution that you put there only for 2 weeks until we will improve our MVP. That thing will stay in the system forever. So we are not trying not to do MVPs.
As the last part for me is that if we look at the example where we did something really well, we actually, like Jakub mentioned, we released like those APIs. We started tracking data, getting information from the partner. Already from there, we were changing the structure of the database, the information that could be held in there with partners and with clients to figure out how it works. And then once we started to even get the UI, we were releasing new UI to the production environment literally because we had those different slices and we're learning from each. We're releasing new UI like at least twice a week with live updates and constantly tracking that. And that's the reason why we don't like to say MVP, because it feels like you stop at that version 1. But if you're constantly delivering slices, you can see the value, remove stuff, and make quick changes incredibly quickly from there.
Thanks for a very long answer and very great answer.
We're going a little over time, so maybe can you ask the questions after just 3 of them? Sorry
Yes,
about that.
I can.
Yeah, and we will go to the second presentation so that you just had too long of an answer. Sorry about that, but you'll get your answers. And to answer on the stream, yes, we will provide you with the slides. So don't worry about that. So thank you very much. Sorry for cutting it like this. And we can go to the other presentation. Oh, ciao.
Nic se neděje.
All right, so let's have a 5-minute break. I see that you already took one. That's also for you on the stream, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. So we are back. Apologies for the delay, mainly to you on the stream. This is what happens when the pizza delivery is unpredictable. So I hope we have something good for you as well. So we will continue with the presentation from Roman from Atacama. And maybe one disclaimer for you here: there is a photographer walking around you. So and he's making nice photos for all of us. But of course, if you wish not to be taken pictures of and not to be used somewhere else, please let me know. We will make sure you're not on the picture. All right, Roman, floor is yours.
Thank you, Honzo. Thank you. Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Roman Pichlik. I am. Yeah, is it better? It doesn't work. I think it works because I can hear myself. Is it better? Okay, guys. Hello and welcome, everybody, one more time. I hope you enjoy pizza and other great food. Thank you, Vercho. Thank you, guys, from Muse. And I hope you also enjoyed the presentation about Product Trio. Can you raise of your hand who like it, who is inspired? Because definitely I am. Thank you, guys. It's something that we would like to incorporate into our own methodology that I will speak about in 5 minutes, which is called Space Hub. But first thing first, my name is Roman Pichlik, aka Dege. I am VP of Engineering here in Atacama. Okay, got it. I also co-lead Czech Java user group for more than 10 years. I record CZ podcast. What about me? I think that's all important. Maybe one note. Atacama is not my first experience with the scaling engineering teams. Before Atacama, I worked for Zonke. Maybe you know Zonke is peer-to-peer platform. So I scaled the engineering team at Zonke from 5 to 50. Then I joined Velvon, which was intended as a pan-European bank. Also helped scale the engineering team from 50 to almost 100. And today I would like to talk about elephant in the room, about one thing which is correlated as a bottleneck for the scaling your engineering organization, scaling your product. But before we jump into this bottleneck and then maybe tell you more about the elephant in the room, let me share a story of mine. Except all the things that I work here for, I work here for Atacama. I'm also passionate triathlete. Triathlon is multi-sport discipline, so you are supposed to swim, run, and then swim, bike, and then ride a bike, and then run. And because I set my goals high, I told myself, like, it's not only about, going some races. You need to find, let's say, some challenging goal. So I pick half Ironman distance, which is 1.9 kilometers swimming, 90 kilometers on bike, and then running half marathon, which is 21 kilometers. But like finishing in this distance wasn't enough to me. So I said, okay, what is the time that is considered like a decent performance? And I find out it's going to sub 5 hours. So I set my goals like not finishing half Ironman, but finishing under or sub 5 hours. And it was pretty tough. I did 5 times half Ironman and never ever was able to go faster than 5 hours and 30 minutes. So after one race, I was finishing like in 5 hours and 45 minutes, which is 45 minutes later than I wanted to be. I sit on the on the floor and speaking with my coach, and we were have such kind of honest discussion about my performance, and he told me something like this: okay, maybe this is your top performance and you cannot go faster. So back in time, I had two options. Option number A, like give it up and say, okay, this is my top performance. I cannot go faster. I cannot go closer to 5 hours. Or accept bigger challenge and start focusing on my weaknesses and my strengths. So regarding to challenge, I said to myself, okay, maybe you should aim high, and aim high was going Ironman. Ironman, for your information, is 3.8 kilometers. Then you ride your bike 180 kilometers, and after all of it, you run marathon, 42 kilometers. Okay, pretty decent challenge. Only go the marathon itself. And as I mentioned, the distance that you are supposed to go, you spend a lot of time in a saddle of your bike, because riding 180 kilometers and then run marathon is a pretty decent challenge. So long story short, I beat sub 5 hours on half Ironman distance by two things. The first one, I accepted bigger challenge and start focusing on the Ironman distance. And because I spent so much time on the bike, my biggest superpower, or my superpower, which is running, could lead me over or sub 5 hours. So just only cautious change in my training and focus on my strengths and weaknesses allowed me to break the 5 hours barrier and go sub 5. So for me, this story is about my strengths and weaknesses, and how I had to change myself, how I changed to the way I was training to go faster. And I didn't train more hours. I didn't train harder. I just focus on my strengths and weaknesses. So this is enough about me, and at least my triathlon career. But then going back to Atacama, I joined Atacama because, as I mentioned, I set my goals high. So Atacama is a great company. We aim on unicorn, which is $1 billion USD valuation, IPO for sure. We are a product company. That was the reason why I joined. We grow pretty fast. So it's last 2 years, it was 100% year over year. And regards to our customers and the engineering challenge, we process a lot of data, insane amount of data. It's petabytes of data, which is pretty challenging engineering challenge. So that's the reason why I joined Atacama. When I joined, I think we were in between 80 to 100 people, and I was tasked to almost double the size of the engineering. Back in time, we used Scrum, and it wasn't my first appointment with Scrum. First time when I heard about Scrum was back in time in 2006, when a friend of mine, Jiří Fabián, called Philemon, friend that we together record CZ podcast, mentioned Scrum as a methodology that they used in Nokia. Do you guys recall Nokia? Who of you? Or Snake, at least. I think Nokia will be remembered because of that famous mobile type. I think it was 5500, something like that, or because of Snake, the game. Since that time, I know Scrum in and out. I was working for different companies of different sizes, from startups to small and medium companies to enterprises in various roles as an individual contributor, as engineering manager, engineering director, even agile coach. So I know and met Scrum in many various I would say position. There were something in common. And I would say there were 4 anti-patterns, or the things that were repeating again and again and again. And please raise your hands who is familiar with one of these problems. So who of you, or at least your product engineering team, hit the wall with the product features were prioritized over the technical depth? Who is experienced with this problem? Okay, maybe half of you. Then something that really bother me. I call that problem impact over factory production. So I heard very famous claim by John Carmack. Do you know, guys, John Carmack? He is the author or writer of Doom. Do you recall that game? And in one kind of, okay, the first 3D, first person action computer game. And in one interview, he said a famous sentence, and it goes back to the previous presentation. And the sentence was like, more engineers give you more product, but definitely not better product. And I think Scrum is the methodology that allow you to turn your engineering teams into the organization that is predictable. You know, all these things about velocity and predictability that give you more product, but definitely not better product. So one issue that I spotted is usually product and engineering organization using Scrum are more optimized on the predictable pace of the product increments, but not better products. Who of you have similar feelings or have heard? Okay, Tomáši, thank you that raise your hand. Thank you. Third problem, distraction by unplanned work. You know, you start sprint and then week after there is some customer issue. So half of your team has to focus on the troubleshooting the customer, or your production microservice goes down and half of your team need to fix it and keep the lights running. Okay, so distraction by unplanned work. Scrum is not a better tool that when you are faced by distraction or unplanned work. And guys, this is real life. You know, we cannot say, please don't bother us with the operational issues, because these operational issues exist for sure. Last but not least, I think it's my 20 years experience. I don't believe it's possible deliver something meaningful in 2 weeks, because 2 weeks, this is the most common Scrum sprint duration, and this one impossible to deliver in 2 weeks, together with the focus more on the delivering product, not making an impact. And we can be honest to each other, the most important thing that we are responsible for is making product impact, like not delivering product increments, right? This is, let's say, technical things. The way why we wake up every day and go to the work is because we want to have impact. So I think impossible to deliver something in 2 weeks. All of these problems have been repeating again and again and again and again. It really doesn't matter in which company or in which role I met Scrum. It was same again and again. What were the incomes of these 4 common problems or patterns? frustration on all sides. So engineers were frustrated that they don't have impact. Management was asking like what we are supposed to do. We need better product, but we don't get it. Lack of visibility, like usually tell me why we have over 50 engineers, but the product increments are, let's say, not so interested. You don't make impact. Losing autonomy, something leading to that you are given what to do because of the two-week cycles, etc. So at the end, your impact is very, very low. And I think there is something in common, and in English it's called elephant in the room. And I believe that Scrum is not working. And I believe that the reason is not because it's a good or bad methodology, but it simply doesn't fit to your needs, to your strengths. It doesn't adhere your strengths, weaknesses to your company DNA. Please don't be fooled. Don't start looking for another methodology, like for example something from Basecamp called ShapeUp, mimic Spotify model, Pipedrive missions and Launchpads. I think you would get the same result, and the reason is the same. Like all of these methodologies were tailored to strengths and weaknesses of the given organization or organization. And we realized that, I think, almost a year ago at Atacama, and we were start challenging ourselves, like, is the Scrum really the best methodology that allow us to scale the engineering or scaling the product and engineering organization? Does it really adhere to our strengths and weaknesses? And we start, let's say, SWOT analysis. What are our strengths and weaknesses? So with identified strengths and weaknesses, which you see on the picture, we come up with SpaceUp, our scalable product and engineering methodology. I will not deep dive too much into the all details of SpaceUp. I will mention three the most important pillars or components that I would like to share with you, which are spaceports, missions, and ground crew. There is much more. You can see this glossary on the spread somewhere on the tables. You may find much more there, and I will like spend time on the spaceports, mission, and ground crew, because you will see how this concept fundamentally maps on one side on the problems, on the four problems, and adhering to our strengths and weaknesses. So first of all, spaceports. Our basic unit of team is called spaceport. Spaceport, it's not two pizza team, as you may know from famous name given by Jeff Bezos. Spaceport, it's a unit up to 35 people, and the 35, it's not an arbitrary constant. We pick 35 because it's the Dunbar constant, saying that in a group of up to 35 people, you are able to create at least or see some kind of the relation. So spaceport is a big, let's say, hometown for up to 35 people. It's definitely multi-competency in order to deliver end-to-end things. So we have there engineers, product people, designers, engineering managers. So every single competency that is needed for end-to-end product delivery is included within spaceport. In our case, spaceports are independent in the way how they organize inside. So we don't say like you have to have this, I don't know, postmortems or this kind of the stand-ups. This is an autonomy of each spaceport. Why I put here that it solves impact over factory production, because you have simply up to 35 people, which is pretty decent force to deliver something meaningful. Okay, so spaceports. We have 7 spaceports. 5 of them are focused on the product. 2 of them are focused on building highways. Highways is it's our acronym that we use for the building or enabling other spaceports and providing some kind of the platform that product spaceport may build on top of it. Who of you know, guys, the book which is named Team Topologies? Do you know Team Topologies? Okay, Team Topologies is a book that describes 4 archetypes of engineering teams. Product teams, which are called stream aligned, then complicated subsystems. I don't deep dive into what complicated subsystem is. And then you have 2 other types of engineering teams. One is called enabling teams. These are the teams, for example, when you try to adopt continuous integration or continuous delivery, this team help your product teams, this stream aligned with adopting CI/CD, for example, and we may find other various topics that this enabling team might help with. And there is the last archetype of the engineering team, which is called platform. Okay, typical platform team provides, for example, Kubernetes environment or this building environments and etc. So we have five product spaceports and 2, let's say, platform/enabling spaceport that build highways that the product spaceports use. Missions. Mission is a key concept for us for delivering either the technical tasks or solving purely technical things, and it's also a tool that we use for delivering product. A mission is usually planned from 2 to 6 weeks. It's time box. It means that we say, okay, this mission will take, I don't know, 4 weeks. During these 4 weeks, we will deliver this. These are possible missions, and we use the same mechanism for the technical increments and also for the product increments. Missions is also a tool for us that allow sharing the knowledge about the product, about the technical things, etc. A crew for a mission is built based on the actual mission needs. For example, when we have a mission delivering snowflake profiling or data quality rules, the mission crew is built from within the people with the capabilities from within the spaceport or cross spaceport that are needed for the given delivery, which means that people are rotating on different missions. So there is also missions are a tool for rising leaders, because there is one role which is called mission commander. It's a role, okay, so you don't have a job title like mission commander, but it's a role that people step in, step out based on the fact how they joined mission, and these mission commanders are responsible for the mission success. So for us, this mission doesn't only have this time box manner, doesn't have the right capabilities, but serves as a tool for the rising leaders. Ground crew, that's something very important in our concept. At the spaceport, significant portion of the spaceport is dedicated for unplanned work. We call this capacity ground crew. So ground crew is responsible for the shielding people on a mission and provide them time being focused on the mission only. So ground crew are the people who deal with all the kind of the unplanned work. So that's one purpose why we have ground crew. Another reason why we have ground crew is all the necessary discovering next missions. So people on ground crew usually help with the mission discovery. It really doesn't matter what is your competency or skill set. It really doesn't matter whether you are product manager or designer or engineering. From time to time, you are either in a ground crew or on a mission. So these people at the ground crew deal with all the kinds of the unplanned work, like bugs, support issues, troubleshooting, incident resolution, but also working on small technical tasks like, okay, let's improve this test stability or increase the test coverage. All this kind of the task goes on ground crew. So let me share some numbers. We reorganized Atacama product engineering team in October 2021. Till this moment, you see we flew more than 40 missions, more than 63% of the people were on mission. We did some internal research and qualitative research, not quantitative, qualitative, and at least 80% of people, because of the missions, spaceport, ground crew, better understand and are aligned with our overall vision and mission. So the numbers speaks for itself. And now, focus on your problems, because some of you will raise your hand that you are faced with the very similar problems as we were. And the problems, maybe one more time, you prefer or deliver, for whatever reason, more product features than the technical debt, so you don't pay technical debt. Maybe you realize that you built product engineering organization which is predictable but doesn't have necessary impact. Or maybe you are frustrated because there are a lot of unplanned works or bombs thrown in your way, or you start you maybe realize that you feel that you cannot deliver something meaningful in two weeks. And you, as me, has two options. Option one, you can give it up and say, okay, maybe this is the best what we can do, or you can accept a bigger challenge. And bigger challenge is that you start thinking about your strengths and weaknesses. I mean, not you personally, but about your organization, about your engineering and product team. So how and where you can start? First, you can read about our methodology, Space Up. It's on Medium, so feel free to navigate on Medium and read more about our methodology. How does it work? That's one thing. Please don't be fooled like starting from one methodology to another methodology, because as I mentioned, it's about understanding your strengths and weaknesses, and that's the only way how you can improve is understanding them and then tailor your own methodology. So please do not start mimic somebody else. It would be just only cargo cult. Start trying to understand what are your strengths and weaknesses, Space Up, and other different methodologies than Scrum, or maybe even Scrum are methodologies that you can pick whatever might work for you, so you can pick. Then please, once you understand your strengths and weaknesses, tailor your own methodology, because I think that's the only way how you can scale your organization and your product. And I wish you good luck to break your barriers, as I did for my sub 5 hours in half Ironman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dagi. I have one question regarding your Ironman. You mentioned, well, I always have questions about sports, but you mentioned that the biggest strength was running. Did it stay like that, or did you find out that actually when you do the longer one, swimming can be your strength as well, or biking?
Still in triathlon, you can be, there are two archetypes of athlete. You are either a good swimmer and cyclist, or you are a good runner. So I'm still very, very exceptional runner, but I improve a lot on bike, a lot. But it took me years, to be honest. It took me years.
I could never do the swimming. That's the part where I never do a triathlon.
It's funny that most of the people are worried about swimming, but it's not definitely difficult. You can learn swim in, I don't know, 2-3 months, like taking swim smooth school or something like that, and they are able to teach everybody. And like, don't bother too much with swimming. There are different challenges.
Right, thanks. So any actually relevant questions, not like mine, any questions for the presentation itself here in the audience? And I will shortly check the Slido if there is any online.
Thank you for presentation. It's a really interesting idea. I have a question about this ground crew. It's mentioned that it's about 30%, but I didn't see any mention about like how it's rotated. And the second question related to the first one, on the slides with these numbers, you show that it's like 63% were on mission, flew on mission, and does it mean that like about 30% of people just never flew there and always fixing technical debt?
The first question related to the size of the ground crew and how we rotate people on ground crew. Excellent question. A lot of people were afraid of ground crew when we starting with the Space Hub, because they were afraid they would spend their whole life by dealing with unplanned work. So we said, like, guys, engineering managers, spaceport leaders, it's your responsibility that the people will rotate. How exactly the actual spaceport rotates the people, this is up to them. So there is no, let's say, one unique shared key how we rotate people, but we do. And the reason why we don't have all the people on a mission, it's because sometimes it's better for for the newcomers to come and start on the ground crew, right? Because it's better than throw them into a mission. Then I mentioned that we usually have at least 30% of the capacity for the ground crew, but we have one spaceport that has, I think, like almost 50% of the people on the ground crew, because they have to support a lot of customer installation, because our product is also it's not software as a service, but it's also self-managed, that customers are operating by themselves, and it sometimes generate a lot of toil and support. So even in one spaceport, it's 50%. Did I answer both of your questions? Okay, thanks. Any other question? Okay, wait.
So me. Thanks for a great speech and congrats for Ironman. I have a question regarding the mission the mission time. You mentioned that average, or you plan mission to be 2 to 6 weeks. Now I see average mission time is 6 weeks, which leads me to the question: what do you do if you have a feature, you want to deploy it into the production? You say, okay, let's spend 3 weeks on creating this feature, then it will extend to the 6 weeks. That's something what Scrums help you with to predict it. So is there some point when you decide, okay, we are not going to finish this?
Yes. I'm thinking how to explain that. Like, we are not. We could be much more strict about the mission duration. We are not, because we are still learning how to use this concept. So we don't usually say, okay, you reach the time box, you reach the limits, your mission stop. That's something, or at least in my head, it's a point to be improved. So we do have the reporting on the some kind of the we call that mission HQ. These are the people, spaceport leaders, me as a VP of product, Tomáš as VP of engineering. Sorry, he's VP of product, and then there is reporting on these missions. So every week we have an update. Okay, these missions are flying. These 2 or 3 are overdue. So what we can do. So like we are reporting about the missions that are more than, that exceeds the time box. But I think, Tomáš, we didn't stop any mission yet, right? 2, okay, 2 times. So far we just stopped only 2 missions.
So you not set the auto destruction of the ship after it's launched. Okay.
You mean like auto destruction, like that we would fire the people that didn't finish on time, right? No, not
it's a ship in the space. And it has to stop.
I see.
And this, thanks for that. And my second question is, how you implement this? Because this is a big framework, and you need to change the mind of a lot of people. Was it evolution or the revolution?
It was Big Bang. So we started with the strength and weaknesses, SWOT analysis. Then within a group of 4 to 6 people, we were discussing how the methodology may look like. We took an inspiration from Pipedrive. They have something very similar called missions and launch pads. And then we were thinking, as you mentioned, how we can roll out such a methodology. And the best option back in time was Big Bang. So last year, I think it was October, we did first offsite after COVID. Went to Lipno for, I think we were there in 160 people and introduced this concept. People, like, it wasn't the first time that when people heard about Space Up. So we had this initial internal presentation talking about the concept, then trying to assign people into spaceports, and then we had this offsite when we the spaceport first meet there. So that was one thing why we needed offsite. And second, there were some adjustments, like some of the people doesn't like their placement, so people exchange. So definitely, if you want to roll out such a big thing, it's, for us at least, was important having this offsite. Then Tomáš put together with Alžběta this awesome glossary describing the basic concepts. We wrote internal Notion page describing also the whole methodology. Then we asked Antimultivitamin, which is Czech famous. It's like designer or illustrator. I don't know how it's called in English. Illustrator, to prepare a graphic for us, and all the postings, etc., which was also very important to get people onto idea. So this is how we roll out Space Up. That was those things that we were afraid a lot. But I don't think that maybe one or two. I would say I'm aware of one person at engineering, Tomayu, at product. Nobody, no one.
Right. Thanks for the question. There. Okay, I'll just use one from the Slido. Veet is asking, what would you say is the minimal team size for your method to be viable? Would you assign all the ground crew work to a single person?
No. Definitely not all ground crew work on a single person, because you couldn't support the exploration or exploratory of the new mission. So definitely one wouldn't be enough. I think the smallest spaceport in our case, Data Stories, was like 10 people, up to 10. At the beginning, 10. But I would say even 10 is too small. I would say the at least size would be like 20, 25 people, because you don't want to have a spaceport that would be able to fly just only one mission. That's not the reason why you make this arrangement. Okay, guys.
Yes.
Go ahead. Last question,
Okay.
and then we can go. We can continue offline.
Yes. So as of now, is there anything what is like challenging for this methodology, or maybe what is the hardest for you as of now?
Yeah. Great question. Everything is challenging, because we are at this moment like 250 will be end of this fiscal year, which is end of September, like almost 300. So everything is challenging. But regards to methodology, so for example, there is one thing that we originally put into the Space Hub, but we didn't follow on it too much, and it's called Space Program. If you are familiar with, for example, how is called that space program which took Americans on the moon? I think it's Mercury. Apollo. Yeah. So if you recall Apollo, I think Armstrong mission was like 7 or 9 or 8, I don't know, mission within the space program which took Americans to the moon. So we intentionally were thinking about this concept of space program when you need to fly a couple of subsequent missions to deliver meaningful impacts. So we put this concept of the space program into the methodology, but to be honest, it simply doesn't work as we intended, because sometimes people jump between switch the mission, so we don't have this kind of the focus. And we were thinking like having this space programs would help us, keeping, for example, very similar crew of the missions, like flying a couple of missions afterwards. So that's definitely one problem. Then we were dealing with the concept which is called pitching. Pitching is the way how you propose what you would like to deliver by that missions. We iterated at least 2 times on the mission concept, how you pitch a mission to public crowd, how you get green light for the starting a mission. That's something we also were redesigning. So a lot of things we are still learning how to make this methodology better fits to us. But I think that will be similar for whatever methodology that you either tailor that or pick, because it's like the agile world works simply. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dagi, and you can continue explaining what is the hardest as of now. And thank you everybody for coming. Thank you everybody for watching, and see you in Hawaii at the Ironman.